Hi everyone, thanks for joining me in this new episode of Optimizing Generative AI for Efficiency. In this part, I'm going to cover some topics related to foundation model outputs. So we're going to talk about how you can control foundation model outputs, how you can evaluate those, and even some specific topics related to those outputs. Things such as hallucination biases that we're going to just deep diving on those. So let's jump in. All right. So last time we talked about the transformer architecture, which is actually the core of foundation model. So here we can see a simplified version of the transformer architecture that we discussed in the last episode. So the thing is, if you remember, so in the transformer architecture, usually we have like input text, and then those input text there is a like kind of pre-processing stage here that are changed and converted to the tokens, and then those tokens go through a number of layers, including the embedding layers, a number of encoder and decoder based on the type of multi-attention um, um, kind of layers that we have. Let's say for this case, we have like 3 encoders and 3 decoders, so that the input token should go through. And then um, all these different layers actually help us to generate the output. And the output can be whether text or code or images based on the type of foundation model that you're using. So based on this architecture, you can think of a foundation model more like an engine, and which actually gets some inputs and then generates some output. And just like any engine, we need to have a precise control in the output which is generated. So we need to guide the output, and also we need to be able to evaluate the output. So that's actually the purpose of this episode. So we're going to talk about how you can just achieve those. So so today's the focus is just how to steer the foundation models in the right direction. So we're going to explore some methods that can help us to assess the quality of the output, and also we're going to discuss things that can help us to even improve the output generated by the foundation model. All right, so let's start with the evaluation part. So there are like different types of metrics that can be used to evaluate the foundation model outputs. But one thing that you need to always consider, we need to consider a comprehensive approach involving examining the output of the foundation model and in different dimensions. So things like accuracy, coherence, relevance, these are like typical types of dimensions that you need to think of when you are dealing with evaluating the foundation model. So metrics such as accuracy just serves as a fundamental measure in order to assess the correctness of the generated content. Also, things like coherence evaluate the logical flow and the consistency within the output, which can contribute to the overall, I would say, performance of the foundation model. Also, relevance can help us to have a better understanding and assess the output and make sure that generated output is actually in relation with to the in the right relation, I would say, to the input of the foundation model. Also, beside those key dimension, we also have like some task-specific metrics. So things like if you're dealing with tasks such as translation, we have a metrics named Blue, which can be used to assess the performance of that translation task. Also, for summarization, we have like similar things. So these are like some specific types of metrics. And so these are like more like kind of assessing the generated output of the foundation model. And one thing that we also need to consider beside these metrics that are used to assess the generated output, you need to also consider things like the resource usage, some other metrics, some other types of metrics. So if you want to make sure of overall efficiency for the output of your foundation model. Um, so now, um, in order to better, I would say, evaluate the foundation model output, there are like some benchmarking available. And then benchmarking frameworks provide like a standardized mean for performance comparison. So the thing is, when you have like, let's say you have like multiple foundation model and you are trying to just compare those, so benchmarking framework can help you to have like a more like kind of standardized comparison. And one thing that you need to always consider, there is always like some limitation for each benchmark. And and one thing that you need to consider is to these benchmarks should be like a kind of component of your evaluation toolbox. So it shouldn't be the all. You should also consider using some other evaluation approach, but then benchmarking also should be in your plate. So in order to have a lot more kind of like a comprehensive approach. So you can see like a number of popular benchmarking framework such as Glue, Superglue, Helm, which is one of my favorite one. So that I would definitely suggest to check those out. So and be familiar with these frameworks. Beside the frameworks, we also have some benchmarking data sets that 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 you can see a list of those here. But then these data set can be broken down into three main categories. So there are like some data sets that can help you to evaluate for tasks such as problem solving. So if your task is more like a kind of problem solving task, so you need to consider using some of these benchmarking data sets related to those problem solving evaluation so that you can better assess the output of your foundation model. There are like some benchmarking data sets which can help you to just evaluate the writing and the generated output, and some benchmarking that can help you to just assess the alignment to the human values. So definitely I would suggest to also check these data sets and be familiar for what types of tasks those data sets are good for. So based on your business need or business use case and the task that you are trying to achieve, you can use some of these data sets to just evaluate the output of your foundation model. All right, so now that we discussed about some of the evaluation frameworks and the data set and how you need to consider evaluating foundation model, let's cover some key topics. So in this slide, you can see like two key topics that you need to be familiar with. The first one is around the concept of or phenomenon of hallucination. So hallucination is when actually like the model produce outputs that deviates from the factual information or context. Let's say if you are using applications such as ChatGPT, and then if you may know that the ChatGPT is trained. I think the latest version is trained until April 2022. So for those, so if you have like any factual information um, um, after April 22, and then you go to the ChatGPT and ask a question related to that factual information, so you may see like ChatGPT hallucinate and generate some output which may not be correct. So that's something that you definitely need to be familiar with. This concept that we usually see in foundation model and specifically in large language model. The other key topics that you need to also be familiar with is the bias. So bias actually possesses another significant challenges for the output of the foundation model. And it's where actually the output exhibit some preference for a specific perspective. And it actually potentially reinforce harmful stereotypes and contributing to a discriminatory outcomes. So if you see like a kind of a foundation model generate some output which prepare male versus female or any other, I would say, perspective, that's where actually your model is biased. And usually biases happen when there is a like kind of some biased information in the data set that the model is using for training. So these are like the two key topics that definitely I would suggest to check out and also dive deep on those if you wanted to better control the output of your foundation model. And also to deal with those types of challenges, we have there are like several initiatives and frameworks that try to address those challenges. One of the main one is the constitutional AI, which actually emerged as a promising avenue in addressing challenges related to the AI, specifically the ones that we mentioned in previous slides, such as hallucination and bias. So these frameworks trying to just leverage some methodologies like the self-supervised training to help the model learn and adhere to a predefined constitution autonomously. So this approach can actually help to mitigate the risk of hallucination by fostering a deeper understanding of the context and facts within the model. Also, when we incorporate constitutional principles into the training process, this approach actually helps to remove biases and make sure like the output of the AI system avoid favoring particular perspective. So this is also another key topics that I would definitely suggest to learn more about that, because that's some promising approach that can help us to deal with those things like hallucination and biases. And my favorite one actually, like emergent abilities. So this is actually some very interesting things that happen now in foundation models. So previously in some classical machine learning model, we didn't have such a phenomenon, but we started to see it when we have like all these foundation model emerge. And these abilities is just where actually we see some unforeseen capabilities that arise in FMs that are not explicitly programmed during their development. And these capabilities seems to appear as the number of parameters in the training dataset increases. So as you can see, this is like some result from a paper entitled Emergent Abilities of Large Language Model. And as you can see here, there is like a notable leap in the accuracy of the model. You can see in all these different diagrams that there is like a notable leap in the accuracy of the output after reaching a specific parameter count. So this is actually like a very interesting, and that's actually makes some challenges for things like explainability of the output. But that's some another key topics that there are like a lot of research going on in this topic, and it's interesting and you are dealing with those. As I said, in the classical machine learning model, you wouldn't see such a phenomena, but in the foundation model and specifically large language model, we may see this capability. All right, so now before we actually close this episode, let's talk about some of the parameters and its approaches that you can use to control the output of the foundation model. So like as you can see here in this slide, I actually talk about 4 main approach, and most of these parameters are relevant to the large language model, so which is like a subset of foundation model. But then it's good to kind of like similar types of parameters you may see in other types of foundation model. So we have like these decoding methods as an example and as an approach that you can just use in order to control the output of the foundation model. And this method is more like kind of like a pivotal when the foundation model is determining how it should like select the output. And things like greedy search, sampling, beam search, these are like different types of decoding methods that can be leveraged and can be used in order to control the output of the foundation model. Also, we have like another parameter named temperature, which is can help us to control the randomness of the output. So if we want to improve the creativity of the foundation model, we can just use these parameters and increase the randomness of the generated output. There's another parameter again, as I mentioned, more like relevant to the large language model, which is the subsequence, and it's just the number of kind of like a token that the 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 large language model need to generate. And also things like frequency and presence penalties. These are like other types of parameters that can help to further uh, refine the generated output of the foundation model. Awesome. So that's about all that I wanted to share. So a quick summary. So we went through why we need to just deal with the output of the foundation models, how we can evaluate that, different like the benchmarking and data sets that can help us to evaluate the output. And also we talk about some of the critical topics related to the foundation model output, things like hallucination, biases, imaginabilities, and all those things. I hope you enjoy this. Thanks.